Have you seen this video going around the internet? I think for most of us, this is exactly what we think discipline must look like. Today, I want to share 5 actionable ways that you can be more disciplined in your life wherever you're at, and I promise it doesn't include a 3 a.m. morning routine. So for this video, I read over 200 pages worth of scientific studies on exactly how discipline and our brain are interconnected. There were 3 basic things I learned from these studies. Number 1, you can't trick your brain into being more disciplined. The reward has to be big enough for your brain to realize it's worth its time and effort. The second thing I learned is that our ability to be disciplined naturally declines over time, from the time we're in our late teens all the way until the end of our lives. But because our brains are neuroplastic, they can be trained like a muscle so that we can actually increase our ability to be disciplined over the duration of our lives. The third thing I took away from this research was that any kind of growth happens outside of our comfort zones. Now, I think we all kind of know this stuff. Like, I probably didn't need to read 200 pages worth of scientific studies to understand this. Now, like with most things, I think the science backs up what we all kind of already know. This is where the podcast alpha bros tend to come in, and it's discipline, discipline, discipline. We've got to do it, brothers. Or else the girls might say, oh, I'm just needing to get my life together kind of thing. I think both of those approaches are fine. They work in some ways. But I think the bigger thing is both of them are based around shame and guilt in some point. That's the feeling you feel in order to make a change. And I personally never found that very healthy, especially in my late teens and early 20s when I was just trying to figure this whole life thing out. Now, my problem with both of these approaches is that they treat discipline as a solution to a particular problem that is something you can like turn off and turn on. I just need to be more disciplined to get this one thing done. And I don't think that's very sustainable in the long term. I would much rather say discipline is an identity that you develop over time so you become the type of person who does these things. To me, discipline is the ability to choose what you want most over what you want now, if that makes sense. With all that in mind, let's dive in. Actionable item number 1, a go one more mentality. So I've spent a lot of time around athletes, professional athletes and collegiate athletes. Most of this has been for video work. And I'm always amazed by their ability to embrace something that sucks and just keep pushing through it. And I remember this mentality from when I played sports in high school. Whatever they're doing, they tend to push it just past the point of where it's comfortable, where it starts to really suck. That's where you actually see significant progress. Now, the key here is that it's actually something you enjoy and want to do. So one of the studies I looked at voluntary exercise versus forced exercise. Voluntary cardiovascular exercise lowered stress and saw a lot of other biological improvements. Forced cardiovascular exercise had the opposite effect. It was more stressful and saw a significantly reduced physical benefit. Now, you don't need to be an athlete to integrate this. You can use this in any area of your life that you consider to be difficult but worthwhile. Actionable item number 2. Pair something you like with something you don't. Now, there is a massive correlation between habit formation and discipline, and so naturally they're going to intersect at some point. And one of the things that James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits is this concept of craving. Taking something that sucks a little bit to do and pairing it with something that you want to do will make it much more enjoyable. For example, I don't like cleaning the house that much, and so I pair it with listening to fiction audiobooks. It's the only time I listen to fiction audiobooks, except when I'm going on like a long drive in the car. And suddenly I look forward to cleaning because I get to listen to my audiobook. So this is one of the ways you can motivate your brain to do something that it wouldn't otherwise be excited to do. Actionable item number 3. Constraints plus reward. So even though I've worked in a creative industry for my entire career, I've never considered myself a creative. And part of that is because creatives are often stereotyped as people who are very undisciplined. Stereotypically, they're waiting for creativity or inspiration to strike. And I've always found this very unappealing to me personally. So there are 2 things I find that cure this waiting for inspiration to strike thing for me. And when I pair them together, it makes me feel almost unstoppable. Number 1 is creating a routine and constraints around your creativity. I found this to be much more conducive to consistent creativity over time. For example, when I have an entire week to create a YouTube video, I suddenly find myself crammed up against the end of the week because maybe I procrastinated a little bit and I didn't have any real constraints, versus on weeks that I have client projects that I need to complete and I'm needing to fit in and schedule shooting and editing and all of those things around those client projects. The second element is rewarding the behavior immediately afterwards. For example, when I get the things done that I need to get done for the day, then I have the opportunity to go disc golfing in the evening. That's a great reward, but also pair that with if I don't get it done, then I'll need to spend my evening working. Both the appeal of disc golf and the appeal of avoiding working another 14-hour day are both very motivating for me. Now, from a biological standpoint, this makes a lot of sense. Our brains are wired to avoid pain and to seek out reward. And creativity in and of itself is often a very painful process. Simply put, you won't always be motivated, but you can always be disciplined. And I found an easier way to be disciplined is to have a reward built in immediately after the fact. Whatever that reward is, it should be immediate, it should align with our long-term goals, and it should be something that is actually meaningful to us. Because again, we can't trick our brains into doing something that isn't worth it from our brain's perspective. Actionable item number 4, the 2-minute rule. The idea here is to make starting as easy as possible. So for example, for this YouTube channel, I need to write for 1 hour every morning. That's my goal, it's my objective, and it's really hard. A common thing that writers have said over the years is that no one likes writing, they like having written. I didn't start with just an hour of straight writing every day, that would be ridiculous. What I did do though is I said, I will sit down and I will write for 2 minutes. And I often find that as soon as I sit down and I just start, once I cross that 2-minute mark, I'm fine to keep going. And oftentimes I will get all the way to that hour and realize, oh, it felt like I just sat down and got started, but it didn't always feel like that. I know my minimum threshold is just get over that 2-minute hump and then I can keep going. Action item number 5, understand your destination. So the only reason we need discipline is to move our lives in the direction we want to go long term. If you remember my definition from the beginning, discipline is the freedom to choose what we want most over what we want now. A big part of living a life that you want to live is actually understanding where you want to be going first. And many of us fall into the trap of trying to go too many directions at once. My favorite nonfiction book of all time is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And the basic argument of this book is to focus on just what is essential and then eliminate everything else. I just read Cal Newport's latest book, Slow Productivity, and his first point is also that we are trying to do too much. Now, this is the area that I struggle with the most, and talking to other people, I know this is a very common struggle. So if you're in this place, you're not alone. And I have found through personal experience that it is almost impossible to stay disciplined if you are overcommitted. If we try to be disciplined and we keep pushing even when we're overloaded, we will just burn out. So overall, it is much easier to make consistent progress in one direction than inconsistent progress in many directions. So once you have a specific destination in mind, your goals are the GPS that will get you there. It might give you many different routes. You need to pick a route, and maybe there'll be detours along the way, but at least starting out, you're picking one route to go towards the thing you want to do. Then the systems your goals live within, these are often things like habits that contribute towards those goals, that contribute to the bigger direction, is the vehicle that you are driving in. And discipline is the key or the fuel that actually propels that vehicle forward. Does that make sense? I don't know, it makes sense in my brain. Now, whatever system you build for your habits, for discipline, for your goals, just make sure it's a system that is compatible with your life and actually fits within how your life operates. Because if it doesn't, if it's clunky, if it's cumbersome, you will not be a more disciplined person. You will just be a person with more complications and more things on their plate and less things to do. And that gets us all the way back to where we started. If you want to know more about this goals and systems thing and how that all works, I made a video about it at the beginning of the year. It's on the screen right now. Feel free to check that out. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.